Hi again, everybody, and welcome to Friday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live here on Giants.com. It's presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. I'm Paul Dottino, he's Matt Citak, and hey, the Giants got another division game coming up on Sunday at home against the Washington Commanders. By the way, it's another legacy game, Matt, which means you're going to see the old Sims LT Giants on the sides of the helmets. For you folks who used to go to Giants Stadium, I know that's going to be very cool. Giants also going to be having a LT bobblehead day.
Oh, yeah.
On Sunday. Now, this bobblehead is not dangerous. It doesn't sack anybody. It doesn't intercept anybody. It doesn't cause fumbles or land on fumbles. It stays on a stationary pad. It's not as athletic as LT was. But nonetheless, it is an LT bobblehead. So make sure you get here early. What is it, 20,000, 25,000?
I believe the first 25,000.
So get here early, folks. I know you like the tailgate, and the weather's great. By the way, it's 70-something degrees out on the practice field in a gorgeous sun-drenched situation out here in Bergen County. But if you can get here early enough, get one of those bobbleheads before they run out. I know people who tried to get here in time for the Tom Coughlin bobblehead a few weeks ago, and they were all gone. So that's it. Once they're gone, they're gone. They don't sell them on the website.
They're hot commodities.
That's it. So in any event, we invite you to get here early for the Giants and the Commanders game on Sunday. It is LT bobblehead day. Now, as far as this game is concerned, the best word of the day comes from head coach Brian Daboll, who said, Matt, that everyone except Jamie Gillan is going to practice, and that Tyrone Tracy, in all likelihood, will be cleared this afternoon. He's got to go see the independent concussion doctor, to get the thumbs up. But he's out there in the blue jersey now, no longer the red jersey, but the blue jersey, which means he is absolutely as razor thin as you can be to getting cleared.
Yeah, he's at appears like he's at the very final stages of the concussion protocol, where as long as he gets through today's practice without, feeling any side effects or any, new symptoms or any symptoms from earlier in the week, then he'll meet with the independent neurologist and, should hopefully get cleared. And then if so, he'll be good to go for Sunday. And, Coach said that, or he didn't explicitly say, but he pretty much indicated that as long as he gets cleared, it's going to be Tracy most likely leading the backfield again, and that he's earned these additional touches that he's really picked up.
Don't you agree?
Last couple weeks.
He's been great.
100%. He's of the 4 games that since Devin Singletary obviously started the first few games of the season. Tyrone Tracy then took over once Singletary was out. Singletary missed 2 games, then came back these last 2 games. So it's been 4 games that Tyrone Tracy has been the quote-unquote starting running back. And in 3 of those 4 games, he's finished with over 100 yards of total offense, including 2 games with over 100 rushing yards alone. I mean, the Giants' 2 best rushing games of the season have been with Tyrone Tracy leading the backfield. And in those 2 games, he's averaged over 7 yards a carry while handling a full workload. So, any touches that Tyrone Tracy gets, if he leads the backfield, he has certainly earned it up to this point.
Now, I might also add that, as you just alluded to moments ago, it was originally Devin Singletary who was the lead back. Now, he had over 90 yards rushing in Washington in week 2, had a costly fumble at about the 35 of Washington in the offensive zone. But the thing is, the Commanders really don't know Tyrone Tracy. They've seen some film. They've seen his 2 100-yard games, undoubtedly. I'm sure they have studied what he did against Pittsburgh. But as they always say, when you play a guy for the first time, to get him in a real-life game situation under true speed conditions with the live bullets going on is always a little bit of a feeling out process. It's that way with quarterbacks, it's that way with receivers, and it's that way with running backs. You don't really know about his play speed or his ability to cut and juke until you actually get on the field and you experience it. So that may be an advantage for Tracy in that the Commanders really haven't, quote, seen him in real life yet.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. And on top of that, I mean, anyone that just has looked at the game tape from the last couple of weeks, it's very clear to see Tyrone Tracy is just the most explosive back on this team. And that's nothing against Devin Singletary.
Well, Dante Miller may be.
Well, he's on the practice
We
squad.
just don't get to see him much.
Yeah.
But he's
And
got 4.2 plus speed.
That's true. But I mean, of the guys that are actually getting touches,
Yes.
and getting playing time, and that's nothing against Devin Singletary, because Devin Singletary is, sort of like Mr. Reliable, Mr. Consistent. Like,
Yes.
you need someone to go out there and get you 4 yards on a carry when the defense is expecting a run. Devin Singletary might be the guy that I choose to put out there for that situation. But the one thing Devin Singletary is not at this point of his career is, a like home run hitting explosive running back.
Never has been, really.
Never really has been. Meanwhile, Tyrone Tracy going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers, who going into Monday night, I believe had like the number 2 ranked rush defense in the NFL. One of the best units in the entire league. A very talented defensive front. And Tyrone Tracy had over 7 yards per carry against them, ran for 145 yards, had 4 separate runs of 10 or more yards, and on that 45-yard touchdown run, which was obviously, the play of the game, I believe it was the longest play from scrimmage the Giants have had all season.
Yes.
And Tyrone Tracy reached 20.6 miles per hour on that touchdown run, the fastest that any Giants offensive ball carrier has reached in the last 2 years.
Since Daniel Jones a couple of years ago.
Yeah, so this is at least dating the last 2 seasons. That was the fastest any offensive player on the Giants has reached with the ball in their hand. So there's no doubt about it. Any way you look at it, Tyrone Tracy just brings a dynamic that no other running back between him, Singletary, and Eric Gray, they just don't bring that same explosiveness that Tyrone Tracy clearly does bring.
The best way I could describe it for those of you who go back a little bit, and I don't want to say these guys compare necessarily totally to the guys I'm going to name, but they have some similar traits and the similar styles. When Rodney Hampton was young and came into this league, that's a lot of what Tyrone Tracy is right now. Of course, Hampton morphed himself later in his career with the Giants into being a power back. But originally, Hampton was much more of a slasher who had speed and quickness and some jukes to go with his size. And to me, Devin Singletary, do you remember Gary Brown at all?
It was a little before my time.
Okay, he ran for 1,000 with the Giants one year. He was with the Houston Oilers sometime before that, had been a good back, had gotten hurt with the Chargers, then the Giants get him, and he runs for 1,000 yards. More of a consistent, reliable, steady between the tackles, low center of gravity, just kind of try to muscle up in there and get what he could get. Not a home run threat by any stretch. In fact, I think Brown is one of 2 Giants backs to gain 1,000 yards in a season, one of 3, with less than 4 yards a carry. I mean, that's what we're talking about. That style of back. That style of back does not intimidate and does not cause trouble for a defense. The reliable kind of guy who's just going to move the chains and grind out the yardage, for the most part, they're going to be much more concerned about the guy like Tracy, who's got some straight ahead speed, some jukes, some moves, can hurt you in open space, and has the ability to take it the distance. And that's a big deal.
I mean, it certainly is. And, another aspect of Tracy's performance against the Steelers that was fantastic was he forced 5 missed tackles on the Steelers defense, which I will say that was his best outing in that, department of the whole season, and by a wide margin. I believe going into the game, it was either 5 or 6 missed tackles forced on the whole season, and then he reached that number just against the Steelers alone. And perhaps even more importantly was he averaged 3.7 yards after contact. After the Steelers defense first got to him, he still got 3.7 yards per carry after that, that is a fantastic number. And it just goes to show, I mean, we knew that he was this elusive back before the season, but we just didn't know how his success from Purdue last year, how or if it would necessarily translate to the NFL, because let's not forget, this is only his second full season as a running back.
Yes.
Which Tyrone Tracy himself took to Twitter after, I think it was on Tuesday, to point that out. Some account put out a clip of him with the 45-yard touchdown run, and Tyrone Tracy quote tweeted it saying, like, hey, just remember, this is only my second year doing this. Like, the sky is the limit here.
Well, he showed wide receiver explosiveness. Once he got into the open field down the sideline, his straight-ahead speed. I'll tell you, folks, he's a great example, right? He does not have blazing combine speed, right? He was in the mid-4.4s, as I recall,
I believe so.
at the combine.
4.44?
That's not blazing combine speed, but he plays faster than a lot of other players play when they're on the field. And that's the biggest key, which is why we always talk about the underwear Olympics, right? That's what they are in Indianapolis. And when guys clock certain times, well, that's fine. But now when they put the gear on and they're in a game, all of a sudden a bunch of these guys clock a lot slower. Some guys don't clock much slower. In fact, their play speed is pretty close to their underwear speed, so to speak. And Tracy's one of those guys who does not clock a whole great deal slower when he's in a game. And his play speed is dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, I just looked it up. He ran a 4.48 at the combine.
Which is not shabby.
No,
but
it's not, electric speed, but it's certainly not, I would say, like on the slow end of the running back spectrum. But, I mean, again, that 45-yard touchdown run against the Steelers.
Nobody was catching him.
He looked way faster than 4.48 on that run.
Nobody was catching.
Yeah, I mean, and you mentioned there are some guys that their game speed, honestly, is faster than the combine speed. Not
well,
like
I don't know about that.
Not actually, but how it looks is faster.
Because other guys slow down significantly.
And another guy who's a great example of that is Tyler Nubin. I mean, the only reason Tyler Nubin likely dropped to the 47th pick for the Giants was because he ran, I think it was like a 4.6 40.
Mm-hmm.
But when we see him out there on the field,
he around.
Plays way faster than 4.6 whatever that he clocked in at the combine. So, what you said is right. The numbers that they run at the combine technically are faster than what they will obviously wear or clock wearing pads on the field. But game speed, like how it feels and looks, that can be a significant difference. And Tyrone Tracy and Tyler Nubin are both guys that play way faster than their 40 time might indicate.
See, now you know why some assistant coaches and scouts have said to me over the years, I don't even know why we do the 40-yard times in shirts and shorts at the combine. Because the truth of the matter is, you'd be better off telling these guys, get in your gear.
Yeah.
And now give me your 40 time. Because after all, that's the real time that the guy's going to play on the field with. That's why they call it game speed or play speed. That's much more important than the underwear Olympics times. But so be it. They continue to run the combine as they run it. And I'm in no position to change the rules. They're not going to listen to me anyway. So it is what it is. All right, folks, remember, as a reminder, if you're not catching this show live, you can find an archive of this show and our entire podcast network on the Giants mobile app, podcast platforms everywhere, and at giants.com/podcasts. Our number is 201-939-4513. We've already got a phone call. It's Jamel in North Carolina, and you're first on BBKL. Hello.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
What's going on with you?
What's up?
First time caller. I got the day off. I'm a teacher, and I'm going to vote today. But I had a question. I got a chance to catch you guys live.
Did we lose you?
So my question, no. So
okay. Go ahead.
My question is basically, I've kind of lost all hope for this season because, I mean, we got players quitting, we got players calling each other out, and it's like we're 2-6, and I don't see any. I mean, DJ. I mean, he's still doing what he's doing, throwing the late game interceptions. So I'm just trying to figure out where do we go from here. Like, we're basically eliminated from the playoffs. So do we tank the season, or what do we do? Because I mean, it's like the players are almost giving up.
I would disagree with that sentiment. The players have not given up. I've been in that locker room and at practice every day. They're working hard. They are unified. There's self-accountability. There is locker room accountability. They have not given. Look, what did you see in the fourth quarter of the Steelers game? Giants were down at one point by 2 scores, and they answered the Steelers score for score in the fourth quarter until they ran out of time when Jones turned the ball over twice in the last 4 minutes. But they answered the Steelers twice with scores in the fourth where unlike the Jets the previous week in Pittsburgh, just rolled over and played dead. So if you want to tell me about a team quitting and a team giving up, you can call me and tell me about the Jets, who obviously beat Houston yesterday, but against Pittsburgh, there was not much fight in that team.
Right, but we're obviously in the market for a quarterback. So wouldn't it be easier to just draft?
Well, let's put it this way. If you want to talk draft, which I don't do until long after the season, I'll tell you this. There are no Justin Herberts in this draft. It's just that simple. There are no Justin Herberts who are, virtual sure things, Andrew Lucks, et cetera, et cetera. That's not what you're going to get in this draft. So first of all, I would never, ever, ever be okay with a team tanking. That's number one. And number two, if you just wanted to look ahead and say the circumstances are going to make it possible for us to draft in the top 5 or top 3 and maybe get a quarterback, well, I'm sorry, but your timing is bad because this is not a good year to do it.
Yeah, and not only that, but look, I understand the Giants are 2-6. The outlook for this season, making the playoffs, it may not seem that great, but the simple fact is it is week 9. No person in this building is giving up on the season when it is week 9. It doesn't matter how many games back the Giants are for the division lead or the playoffs. Everyone is still here every single day working their tails off, trying to win the football game that is right in front of them. They're going to take it one game at a time, and who knows what could happen. I mean, I know I brought this up, I believe, Tuesday with John, but 2 years ago, the Detroit Lions were 1-6.
Yeah.
And they ended up winning 8 of their last 10 games. Now, they missed out on the playoffs, but they finished the season 9-8, and that kind of springboarded them into their season last year, which they turned out to be one of the best teams in the NFL, which they are again this year. I'm not saying the Giants are on that same path, but who's to say that they can't get on that path? I mean, everyone here wants to just start winning football games. You need to establish this culture of winning and continuing playing until the final whistle. I mean, we saw it last year. The season was lost, and yet Tommy DeVito led the Giants to 3 straight victories. And then in week 18, in a game that was meaningless for the Giants, other than pride, and they were going up against the Eagles team that still had the potential NFC East title on the line, and the Giants went out there and smoked them. Like, you want to see the players and the coaches continuing to give full effort. When guys start fully giving up on the season, that's when things start to get ugly, both on
and we're not
and
there.
off the field.
We're not there.
No, we're not there. I mean, look, the Philadelphia Eagles a couple of years ago, it was the 2020 season, week 17, 18, that game against the Washington football team then, where the Giants needed the Eagles to beat Washington in order to win the NFC East at 6-10, which whatever.
And Philly quit and tanked the game.
Philadelphia benched Jalen Hurts at halftime to put in Nate Sudfeld, essentially tanking. And guess what? Doug Peterson got fired 4 days later. Like, you don't want a locker room that's just going to fully give up. Now, obviously there were, some moments of frustration on the sideline Monday night in Pittsburgh, but that's just because every single player on this team wants to win so badly. I mean, Dexter Lawrence, had that moment where he was, talking to the guys in the secondary, but he's trying to fire them up and get them to play how he knows that they are capable of playing so they could come out and win the football game. These guys are not going to stop trying to win. And I understand fans want to start looking towards the draft and looking at college quarterbacks, but no one in this building is doing that yet. Everyone is trying to focus on winning the game in front of them, getting the season back on track. No one's focused on the draft until the season is over.
The college scouts are. Well, to be fair,
the guys whose jobs.
Got to make sure we're clear.
Okay, yes, to be clear, the guys whose jobs it are
correct
to scout the college players.
Yes,
they are focused on the college season, but everyone else is focused on winning this Sunday.
Now, I also want to make something very clear to you: the Giants are still one of the youngest teams in the NFL by average age and experience.
They are the youngest.
They have. I don't know if they're right now still number 1 based on the rotation players. They were in the top 3 for a long time. Are they number 1 right now?
I believe going into last week, they were number 2.
Have they moved up?
And I didn't see an update from this week, but they were number 2, and all the rookies, I mean, they played
they all
significant
play.
snaps.
They all
The only
play.
team that was above them, I believe, was Green Bay, and I don't know what their rookie situation was this past week.
So the point that I'm making is this. You've got a slew of first, second, and third year players on this team. If you for 1 second believe that those guys are not going to play their butts off as they try to mature, grow, and improve so that they can be a big part of this franchise and also, establish themselves as legitimate, solid NFL players and kick off what they hope to be is a successful career, if you don't believe that for a second, then you're out of your mind. Why would any of these first, second, or third year players quit or give up? Why would any of them do that? What is the incentive to do that?
And I don't know why any fans or anyone would want them to do that.
Exactly.
Like, you want these guys to get used to winning and see what it takes to win football games. Even if the Giants may not go anywhere this season, that doesn't mean like that next year the whole thing can't get turned around. Like, you want these guys to have the mindset of, we are going to go out there each and every week, practice our tails off, and then go play our tails off on Sunday and try to win a football game.
I got a better one for you. Caller, if you honestly think that your perception is accurate, we'll invite you to have lunch with Dexter Lawrence, and you can tell him how this team is broken up and quitting and doesn't want to win. That's about the only guy you need to see. And I think he would set you straight pretty quick.
That guy wants to win more than anything. He doesn't care. He could have 15 sacks on Sunday by himself, or the Giants win the game, and he will choose the Giants win the game every single time.
There's no question.
He said that. He's like, I don't care about my personal stats or accolades.
And you can
all
see
I want to
it.
do is win.
By the way he conducts himself, you could see that.
And you want a locker room full of guys where all they want to do is win.
So I believe your perception is incorrect, and I think once you understand exactly what's going on here, you might have an easier time digesting and moving forward with the second half of the season. But if you're going to have an inaccurate perception, as you already have expressed, well, then I don't know how much I can do to change your mind. But we're just trying to give you the facts.
And look, we understand the frustration, obviously.
Of course.
No one is happy with a 2-6 record. Nobody. But all we're saying is
don't use the words quit
Yeah.
or tank. Don't ever use those words.
just don't give up on this team,
All right, Scott from New Mexico. You're next on the program. Hello.
Hi, guys. How you doing today?
What's going on, Scott?
Got a question for you. I'm the eternal optimist, so for me, being a longtime Giant fan, I think they can at least make some sort of push. 3 teams that were 2-6 actually made the playoffs, and 2 of them were actually pretty recent, one in 2020 and one in 2022.
Yeah.
And so nothing's really, to me, impossible. But the thing I don't understand, and maybe you can give me a clue as to why it's happening, Shane Bowen was brought here specifically to stop the run. And Matt, you probably would have the statistics, but I believe they're actually giving up more yardage this year than they gave up last year under Wink Martindale, which seems puzzling to me. I was wondering if, and it's basically with a better group of defensive players.
Yes.
And I realize that a lot of it is chunk yardage, but chunk yardage counts.
It does.
As well as just a cumulative yardage. So what is the problem with players like Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns and Ojulari, who are, to me, probably the 3 best linemen right now playing in the NFL, and why are they having such difficulty in actually stopping the run? Because, Paul, we've gone over this 100 times. I think you and I are on the same page.
Yeah.
You have to stop the run, and you have to run the football, and that's the way you win football games. I wish people would read Vince Lombardi's books, because basically that's what he states in his books.
Lombardi's books or Lombardi's videos, which I happen to have the collection of, and it's great stuff.
I've read 4 of his books, and Run to Daylight. What they did in the Super Bowl, unmatched in weight against Kansas City, because they were all like 300 pounds, and he had two guards that were both under 260.
Yep.
And I don't know if anybody realized the famous Green Bay sweep was not designed for Green Bay. It was designed for Frank Gifford when he was at
Correct.
in the New York Giants. So what is the problem? I just don't get it. I'm looking
Scott,
at the games, and I don't understand it.
This is what Shane Bowen has told us, and I've also talked to some of the defensive players in the front seven who will remain nameless at this moment. The Giants have 51 missed tackles, which is 12th in the league. All right, that's not a great number. You'd like that number to come down. And what they're telling me is that this. Remember, earlier in the year, their missed tackles were down, and now they've kind of accelerated them. Between missed tackles and between, unfortunately, poor run fits and then not gang tackling. One of the things that Jerome Henderson did tell us earlier today, remember the assistants were out on the patio today for us on Fridays, we get to talk to them. Jerome Henderson said one of the problems in the secondary with missed tackles, and I know that's not necessarily run defense because they're only involved in run defense on a smaller percentage of plays, is that guys are not keeping their head and their eyes up, and they're not keeping their proper balance. They're stopping, they're looking at the play, and they're setting with their feet wide and then trying to stop and start again to go after the ball carrier. And as you know, I learned many years ago, and Jerome was talking to the media today and telling them, that's not what you do. You keep your eyes on the ball carrier. You have to have good vision, and you have to attack and be on the move. Don't stop. Once you stop and hesitate, you've now given the offensive player a tremendous advantage to do what he needs to do and gain extra yardage. And that's something that he believes has plagued the secondary, specifically the safeties. And from talking to guys in the front seven, they're telling me they've had too many missed tackles and they've had too many times where they have left their lanes. Now, the problem is, as I said to one of them yesterday, well, that sounds like it's pretty easy to fix in terms of the lane stuff, right? You'd have to believe that guys just focus more on, okay, where is my lane? Do your job. Focus on your lane. Get your run fit. The missed tackles is another whole issue entirely. Guys have been missing tackles for the last 20 years in this league. But run fits, that doesn't make sense, how guys are losing their run fits. So I know that may not be the explanation that you want, but that's about the best that I've got so far.
Well, it's an explanation, but the real key, Shane Bowen, I assume, is a good coach when it comes to stopping the run. Why hasn't he been able to correct the very things you're talking about?
You know why though?
8 games into the season,
Scott,
and we still don't do it.
He can do schematics. He can't go out there and make the tackle. He can't be responsible for a missed tackle, and he can't be responsible for when guys, for some reason, aren't doing what they're supposed to do and following the schematics. Now, I don't know, I guess to your question, does that become a communication issue to where maybe the guys don't understand exactly the way the schematic is set up and maybe they don't understand what they're supposed to do, or they're not getting the signals all across the huddle so that everybody is fitting in, simultaneously into their holes? That part I don't know, and I suppose to some degree coaching has an impact on that. But when guys just flat out miss their lanes and miss their fits, that's on them.
Right. My last question is an offensive one. Despite all the bluster and the great running and everything else, we're still averaging 15 points a game.
Yeah.
I think it was Lance Meadow last year said it's going to be hard to get up from where we were to, say, 22 points or 21 points a game. And he was right. I mean, it's difficult to increase your totals as far as numbers that much in a year. But I'm not blaming anybody for any of this. Most people are going to look at Daniel Jones and say, is he the culprit or someone else the culprit? We lost one player from our offensive line. When we lost Andrew Thomas, we seem to be a different team. We don't seem to block as well, don't seem to do the things. I mean, by example, Pittsburgh lost 3 starters from their offensive line and still played effectively, even though the Giants had a chance to win that game. But is one player lose? And I realize who he is. If losing one player makes your team totally different in how they score, that's the sort of an indictment on the offensive line as well as the offensive coach. And I don't mean to make it in a bad sense. I just mean to say I don't understand, because injuries are part of the league, and there are players that are missing from all teams. I mean, you saw last night's game. Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs were not even on the field. So you're going to lose players, but losing one offensive lineman, even of his caliber, doesn't make any sense to me. And I was wondering if you guys have an explanation to this, because if you're going to score 15 or 16 points a game,
you're in a lot of trouble. No question.
Right.
Scott, we're going to let you go, and I'm going to let Matt chime in on this. I do want to give you one stat. In 2021, the Giants averaged about 15 points a game. In 2022, when they made the playoffs, they averaged over 21 points a game. So jumping up 6 points in one season is not entirely unthinkable or unreasonable. They were able to do that the year they made the playoffs. Now, the 25 drops this season that leads the NFL, and I spoke about this yesterday, Matt. I don't know if you're aware of this when I was on the show with John. Washington, Dallas, and Philadelphia have a combined 22 drops for the season. The Giants have 25, all by themselves. That certainly is worth X number of points, without question. But anyway, maybe you want to answer Scott.
Yeah, so let's start with the offensive line. First of all, as we all know, Andrew Thomas, when healthy, one of the best left tackles in the entire NFL. Going into the season, if you were to ask any of us who is the most indispensable player on this team, I think all of us would have said Andrew Thomas. Either Andrew Thomas or Dexter Lawrence. So you can't understate how big of a loss it is losing your all-pro left tackle. Despite that, the offensive line against the Steelers on Monday night, truly, in my opinion, I don't think they played that poorly. I mean, obviously, there were pressures. 4 sacks of Daniel Jones, the strip sack late. None of that is good. But first of all, you're going up against potentially the best pass rush in the NFL, and if not the best, one of the best, with TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, and Cam Hayward. That's one of the best defensive lines in the entire NFL. The unit gave up 4 sacks, which obviously you want that to be lower, but it's not. 4 sacks in a game shouldn't completely wreck your chances of winning a game. But not only that, while the pass blocking might have been, below what you want, the run blocking was fantastic by this offensive line. Like Chris Hubbard, say what you want about how he did in pass protection against Alex Highsmith, he was tremendous as a run blocker. And, the analytics show that. They show that he did a very good job in run blocking, and Tyrone Tracy ran for 145 yards. So clearly the run blocking was good. Obviously, that doesn't do you much if it's not all good. You want the pass blocking to be good as well. But let's not just go out there and say, oh, the offensive line was awful because they gave up pressures and 4 sacks. I thought as a unit, given the circumstances, going into Pittsburgh on a Monday night against that defense, I thought they played all right. I don't think that was the reason why we lost that football game.
Look at it this way, and I think this would be a very interesting study, and I have not done the actual mathematics, so let me preface what I'm going to say. But it is my opinion, based on what I've seen and my gut feel. If you look at how many chances, they do a thing in hockey. The analytics people in hockey, and I hate using that word, but the analytics people in hockey, you know how I feel about that.
Yep.
But they have a thing about high scoring chances, right? Shots from the slot or clean shots from the point, high level scoring chances. Mm-hmm. And they talk about the percentage of goals that teams will score based on the number of high scoring chances they have. Well, I want to translate that to football for a minute. Think about how many times the Giants were in scoring position in Pittsburgh and came away with 0 points. 3 times. 3 times they were in scoring position where they could have had points on offense and came away with 0. So they have been in position to score a whole lot more points. And then what happens? They self-destruct. They were deep in Pittsburgh territory, okay, at one point in the second quarter, and then gave up 2 consecutive sacks, which didn't just short-circuit the drive, but it took them out of field goal range. That's 3 points right there. Gone. Evaporated. Just like that. 2 sacks in a row. Back-to-back sacks. Guess what? You're not getting any points on this drive. You're not even getting 3. You're getting nothing. Last 2 drives of the game. They're deep in Pittsburgh territory. Strip sack. You get no points. That's at least 3 points by any stretch of the imagination if you just hold on to the ball. Not that in that situation you were going to kick a field goal. But that shows you, again, it was set up by a fumble. I understand that. Last drive, they went down the field.
Yep.
And then Jones gets picked off balance, overthrows Singletary, and gets picked. But got them all the way down into scoring range. Again, if that's not an 8-point game, if that's a 3-point game, they're probably going to wind up kicking a field goal and tying the game. I mean, so my point is, and this has happened so many times this year, where the Giants have been in scoring position. And when I say scoring position, I'm talking about, and relate to me on this one now, Matt, 35 yards or in, to me, is legitimate, reasonable scoring position, because that's a 52, 53-yard field goal, which in today's game, that's at least 50-50 with most kickers in the league today.
That's fair.
So if you get to the 35 or in, forget this red zone talk about being inside the 20. You get to the 35 and in with today's kickers, you've got a reasonable chance to score points. And the Giants have done that numerous times this year. And because of self-sabotage and destruction on their own behalf, they've come up with a bunch of those trips empty-handed. You can't forget about that. So when people just cite, well, they're scoring 15 points a game, offense isn't doing anything at all. I'm telling you, and I haven't done the numbers. Go back to some of these previous seasons when maybe they have scored a little more, okay? What I would guarantee to you is that their percentage of scoring when they get into the 35 was probably a heck of a lot higher than it is this year, because this year's percentage is embarrassingly low because they continue to self-destruct with either penalties, sacks, or drop passes every time it seems like they get into scoring range.
Yeah, I mean, look, getting into scoring range has not been the issue for the Giants in most of the games this year. I'm not going to say every game, but almost all of them.
Correct.
That has not been the issue. I mean, look at Monday night. The Giants had almost 400 yards of offense against a top-ranked Steelers defense, which a top-ranked in just about every metric, but just in terms of yardage allowed per game, they are a top 10 unit. And the Giants had 394 yards of total offense against them. They were able to get the ball down the field. The issue, as you just mentioned, is the execution in the red zone. I mean, the Giants going through 8 games, they have the worst red zone offense in the NFL, the last ranked one. That is what is keeping this team from, topping 20, 25 points a game, is when they're getting close. That is when, the whole execution seems to be sort of falling apart a little bit.
Now, just to clarify, red zone offense is
Inside the 20.
percentage of touchdowns on opportunities inside the 20.
Yes.
It's not percentage of points scored.
No,
it's
just
percentage
touchdowns.
of touchdowns. And the Giants are last. Now, imagine how badly they fare if you're just talking about percentage of scoring points. They're probably even a heck of a lot worse.
Yeah, I don't have that stat, but
Well, nobody keeps it.
Yeah. Yes, you're right. But yeah, I just wanted to make that point, is that it's not like the offense overall has just been awful in every regard, because that's just simply not the case. And going back to the offensive line, you brought up the strip sack, which Brian Dable and Daniel Jones have both on record stated that was an error by Daniel Jones. He was supposed to shift the tight end over to help chip TJ Watt for Jermaine Illuminor, and they did not do it. Jermaine Illuminor was expecting that, and that's what led to the strip sack. If you take that one play, which, again, was a miscommunication or an error by Daniel Jones. You take that one play out, all of a sudden the performance by the offensive line doesn't look that bad. 3 sacks all game with, again, your all-pro left tackle not on the field against that defense. That would have been considered a good performance. Now, you can't just take a play out, I understand, but in this exact situation, there's reasoning why I'm saying that, that strip sack maybe should not have happened. It maybe would have still happened, but there should have been a chip block there to help Illuminor with TJ Watt. And if that chip block does happen, chances are that strip sack does not happen. And I mean, again, it was a game-changing play. And I'm not saying I'm not trying to take it away from that, but it's a game-changing play that, if you think about it, if the execution was done correctly, should not have happened.
To be fair, even if they called the right play and Jones had gotten the tight end over there, TJ Watt might have beaten the block anyway.
100%. I'm not
He's
denying
that. Good.
He's one of the best players in the NFL, period. He might have gotten by the chip block and Jermaine Illuminor anyway.
He might have.
But it certainly would have helped Jermaine's chances if the chip block happened. And the only, very quick, just back to the first point that the last caller made about the run defense. I think a very underrated aspect of the run defense's struggles these last couple of weeks, which isn't really getting talked about, is the absence of Kayvon. Kayvon Thibodeau is a very good run defender.
I agree with that.
As an edge rusher. It's an underrated part of his game. It might be the best part of his game at this point of his career.
They didn't rank real high against the run, though, before he got hurt either, to be fair.
But if you look at the...
But I do agree with you.
He got hurt.
I do agree with you.
When did he get hurt? The Seattle game, right?
He's missed this will be the fourth game.
Okay, so he's missed the last 3 games. The first 5 games, there's only one very bad performance against the run in those games, and that was week 2 against the Commanders with Jaden Daniels. The whole
Robinson had that big one.
Threat of a rushing quarterback opens up the lanes for your running backs. You look at the other 4 games, no one had more than 111 rush yards. Which 111, that's not amazing, but if you're averaging 110 rushing yards allowed per game, you're in the top half of the NFL this season.
Yeah.
So there was one game where they allowed more than 111 rush yards when Kayvon was on the field. In the 3 games that Kayvon has been out, they've given up 121 rush yards, 269, and 167. So especially those last 2 weeks, that is what is skewing these rush defense numbers to look as drastic as they are. And this is nothing against, Azeez Ojulari, because Azeez has been fantastic these last 3 weeks as a pass rusher. 5 sacks in the last 3 games. He's been tremendous. However, I don't think anyone would argue that Kayvon is simply just better against the run than Azeez is.
Without a doubt.
So replacing Kayvon with Azeez, while it might boost the pass rush a little bit, the run defense is going to take a hit. And I think that is the unit as a whole has felt his absence these last 3 weeks.
Folks, want to remind you the Giants Huddle podcast. Pearson, who's up on that show this time around, the directory?
Well, later today it'll be Jason Pinnock and Coach Dable.
All right, very cool. Giants Huddle podcast is on all your favorite podcast platforms everywhere. Go to giants.com/podcasts, and you go to Apple Podcasts as well. Giants season memberships, well, I guess it's a half-season membership now, are still available and get benefits all year round. Go to giants.com/tickets. And obviously the Giants TV mobile app. It is free, and you can get all kinds of highlights and fun stuff on there via the video department here with the Giants. It's free on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and the Giants mobile app. We go back to the phones, and Marty from Manahawkin is next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hello.
Hey, Paul. Hey, Matt. How you guys doing today?
We're okay, Marty.
Good.
How are you?
Good, Paul. I was listening to Scott, and he was, he did make sense about the offensive line, especially, what's happened since we lost Andrew Thomas. But, I look at the other teams too, and I think that, we're having growing pains. We're on the right track because, all those other teams that, like you mentioned, like the Steelers and stuff. They've had their linemen together now for, a number of years.
Mm-hmm.
And, we have all new guys, and actually we have a new offensive line coach, too. So I would just chalk it up to growing pains right now. I don't think, I don't think it's the end of the world. I really don't.
Marty, 2 points. Number one, growing pains by definition means that there are certain things that you have to go through while you get better. Growing pains are actually good because that means you are improving and you are on the right track. So let's clarify that, number one, and I agree with you. Number two, Coach earlier today did say that Chris Hubbard will remain, at least that's the plan right now, as the starting left tackle this week against Washington. I don't think we mentioned that at the beginning of the program, but he did say that Hubbard did get better as the game went on. He likes his experience. He likes his smarts and his ability to pick things up because he's been around the league for a while. He clearly knew a chunk of the Giants playbook from the get-go, and so they're probably going to give him another start this week.
Well, hey, you know what, Paul? The more they can get in there and get reps, the more they'll be able to gel.
Yeah, for sure. There's no question about that. I mean, look, again, I don't want to revisit the preseason, but that's one of the reasons why I think offensive linemen, especially rebuilt lines, need to play more than most coaches are willing to let them go.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, Paul, thanks for taking my call, and go Giants.
Thanks, Marty. Be well.
Thanks, Marty.
201-939-4513. We still got another 10 minutes or so left on the program.
Something I want to just touch on again.
Sure.
That Scott brought up, the line shouldn't, I guess, take such a step back just because they lost one guy. When you have a guy that, and this is nothing against the other offensive lineman, but that is just clearly the best offensive lineman of the group, and you look at almost any team across the NFL, if you take that guy out, the unit is going to struggle. And so I looked this up just now, and the example I'm going to use is Trent Williams, who I don't think anyone would argue is perhaps the best tackle in the NFL, one of the best tackles in the NFL. He missed 2 games in the middle of last season for the 49ers. Guess what? 49ers lost both of those games against the Vikings and Bengals, and they were unable to establish the run whatsoever with Christian McCaffrey healthy and playing against 2 teams whose last year's defense were okay, like middle of the pack, not great defenses, and the 49ers could not move the ball without Trent Williams there at left tackle. That's just one example. I'm sure if you gave me some time, I could find many others. Losing your best offensive lineman, especially one that is a tackle, doesn't matter who you have behind him. The line, it's just obvious the line is going to take a big step back when you take an all-pro out. Just like when you take an all-pro running back out of the backfield, your run game is probably going to struggle. You take an all-pro cornerback out of the equation, your secondary is going to take a step back. Like, I understand you would hope that losing a guy of that level, you wouldn't feel it that much. But the reality is, for any team at just about any position across the NFL, unless you have some stud rookie waiting in the wings, that position, it's going to take a step back. And again, the performance of the offensive line against the Steelers Monday was far from perfect, but I do think that they at least deserve some credit and some kudos for how they performed in the run game, because that was, I think, one of the best run blocking performances we've seen from the offensive line all season.
Well, that one in Seattle.
Yeah.
I mean, and quite frankly, here's the valid criticism of the offensive line. They've been inconsistent, especially in their run blocking.
100%.
The pass protection has taken some hits since Andrew Thomas is out. Before that, it was at a pretty solid level for the most part.
Yep.
But the run blocking, even with Andrew Thomas, it's been up and down all season. They just have not found any consistency there. And that's the unfortunate part, because, you got to wonder, honestly, Matt, you got to wonder if the Giants had gelled together better with their run blocking, how much more confident would this entire offense feel about itself? How many times would they have converted some of these drives if they had just been able to smash mouth the ball once they got across the 50? How much better would they have felt about themselves, probably scoring more points, because they weren't becoming so one-dimensional so often when teams knew, all right, today they don't have the run going. All right, so now this is what we're going to do to them. That helps sidetrack you.
100%. I mean, if a defense doesn't really have to feel threatened by the opposing team's run game, then you just drop more guys back into coverage, and that's going to obviously hurt the passing attack. So without it, I mean, we talk all the time about complementary football.
Well, especially when the Giants are dropping passes.
Yeah.
It's like, go ahead. You want to throw it? Throw it. You probably won't catch it anyway. Or you're going to get pressured. Something's going to go wrong.
Yeah, but look, we talk all the time about complementary football on both sides of the ball, or all three sides of the ball. The run game helps open things up in the passing game. The passing game helps open up rush lanes for the running backs. Like it's all like pieces of a puzzle. It all needs to work together in order to reach the most, efficient and productive outcomes. So yeah, the unit just unfortunately has not played at a very consistent level in terms of the run blocking. As you mentioned, I do feel like the pass blocking for the most part has been pretty consistent. Now they've had some, bumps in the road for sure. Not every game has been a great pass blocking game, but for the most part, it's been pretty consistent. It's the run blocking that I think if they had a little more consistency in that area, the unit, the group as a whole would be, I guess, kind of looked on by those outside this building maybe a little bit higher than they have been.
Now, we told you that Dallas couldn't stop the run, and then the Giants couldn't run against them. We told you Cincinnati couldn't stop the run, and the Giants couldn't run against them. Well, not particularly well. Well, we're going to tell you the same thing about the Commanders, folks, because guess what? They are 25th in the NFL in rush defense at over 135 yards a game, and they're giving up over 5 yards a carry, which is 29th in the National Football League. Okay. Should we try telling you a third time that the Giants should be able to run against this opponent?
I will never say that again because I said I pretty much guaranteed that Singletary would have a good game against the Cowboys, and that was the worst rushing performance of the season. So I'm done making anything close to like a guarantee about a certain area of the game. I will say that it certainly is a good matchup on paper for the Giants' run game. And I think what could be a big factor in this, we'll see if he's on the practice field today for the Commanders, but linebacker Frankie Louvu, one of their offseason acquisitions who played great for them next to Bobby Wagner, Wednesday and Thursday did not participate in practice because of a shin injury.
Right.
I don't know what the expectation is for him on Sunday, but if he's unable to go, that would be a big loss for that Commanders defense. And you would think, again, would help open things up a little bit in the run game for Tracy if he gets cleared, Singletary for everyone.
Look, the Giants would be well advised to do everything they can to get the run game going this week, not just because that appears to be a Commander's weakness, but also because on the other side of the ball, although the Commanders had a tremendous amount of difficulty moving the ball and scoring against the Bears last week, and then they got the miracle Hail Mary to knock off Chicago. For the season, Washington's averaging 30 points a game, Matt. I mean, the fact that the Giants held them to 0 for 7 in the red zone and forced them to kick 7 field goals to beat the Giants 21-18 in week 2, boy, that's great. And that should give the Giants defense confidence that mano a mano, they can absolutely contain this offense. But at the same time, since that game, look at some of the numbers that Washington has put up. I believe only one or two other times this year since then have they been held like under 30 points. They have been putting up some big numbers. Their offense is rolling. Daniels seems to be quickly getting into the flow. Him and McLaurin are starting to really connect. And so this is a different, much more dangerous Washington offense than when the Giants played them in week 2. So to get the run game going, again, reduces the Commanders' offense's opportunities.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, this offense, the Commanders' offense, is very different from the week 2 game between these two teams. In the 6 games since then, they have scored over 34 or more points in, 4 of the 6 games. Chicago and then Baltimore a couple of weeks ago. Those are the only 2 games under 34 points. They rank 3rd in the NFL in both points and yards gained on offense, which is tremendous. Now, I will say the one weakness for the Commanders is similar to the Giants. They do struggle when they get into the red zone. Their red zone offense, which again, touchdowns when they get inside the 20-yard line, they have a 51.4% red zone or touchdown percentage, which ranks 24th in the NFL. So that when they get close, I mean, as we saw it against the Giants in week 2, I mean, they went, was it 0 for 6 in the red zone? 0 for 7?
Was a 0 for 7.
So that is the big weakness for this Commanders offense. But, I mean, you touched on the connection between Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin. Through the first 2 weeks, which included the game against the Giants in week 2, McLaurin was held to under 40 yards total combined in the 2 weeks. In the 6 games since, he's had 3 separate games with over 100 yards. Jaden Daniels has quickly come to realize that Terry McLaurin is easily his best pass catcher, and he is throwing him the football. They are taking deep shots down the field to McLaurin, and McLaurin, he's always been able to catch the deep ball.
I was going to say, what took him so long?
It took a couple of weeks, but that connection seems to really be why this offense has taken a significant jump since week 2.
I do want to point out one other key number. We talked about how the Giants, specifically on defense, have done well for the most part, but then they seem to give up a handful of big plays every week. Well, the Commanders are 4th in the NFL in third down conversions at over 46%. Okay? So if you're the Giants, all right, especially on defense, it's not good enough to, let's say, hold Washington to, let's say, a nice modest number, 275 yards of total offense. Okay, that'd be a terrific number. You'd love to hold a team to a big number like that, right?
Sign up for that.
But here's the problem: what happens if they give up 3 25-yard plays in that number that were third down conversions that wind up leading to touchdowns? Well, then guess what? You lose. That's what happens. It's not just the overall number or the overall performance. It's what do you do in key spots? And the Giants have been very unclutched this year on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, that is true. I will say, just looking at the Commanders, the stats from their win on Sunday against the Bears, of course they had, was it 52-yard Hail Mary at the very end?
Yeah.
So that added a little more yardage to their total. But even before that play, they had, let's call it 430 total yards of offense compared to 307 from the Bears. And yet it took a last-second Hail Mary for them to come out with the victory. They had 130 more yards of offense, and they were about to lose the game.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, your point exactly. You know, in a vacuum, we can say, yeah, hold them to 275 yards of offense. That's great. Giants should win the game then. But it's the circumstances in which how they get that 275 yards that actually is what matters more so
the
than
turning
the
point
final.
plays. It's that simple. The turning point plays. You can't let the other team have an advantage in the turning point plays because that's why they're called turning points. They'll beat you every time.
Yeah, for sure. So
All right.
explosive plays, limiting the explosive plays, that is going to be a big key for the Giants defense, no doubt about it. And then I will say on offense, you know, we talked about how the Giants have had some red zone struggles. Well, this is a very good opportunity, a good matchup for them to snap their recent funk in the red zone because the Commanders ranked 29th in the NFL in red zone defense. So if there's ever an opportunity for the Giants to finally punch it in when they get close, it's this week against the Commanders.
I think the Giants were 3 for 3 in red zone opportunities in week 2.
Yep.
All the more reason why they should believe that they can execute in that fashion. That will do it for this edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. A reminder, folks, coming up on Sunday, 1 o'clock kickoff, Giants and Commanders at MetLife Stadium. Get here early. First 25,000 are going to get LT bobblehead dolls. It is Legacy Weekend here at the Giants, so looking forward to seeing those old Sims LT-style helmets. Pre-game show is on WFAN beginning at 11 o'clock. Yankee baseball is over, so no need to be bouncing around the channels. Also, you'll get the post-game show on WFAN as well, and the MSG Live post-game show for 1 hour on MSG following the conclusion of the game.
And the blue Legacy uniforms as well.
Well, like I said,
I know
the helmet
you
goes with the
mentioned-
uniform.
I know you mentioned the helmets, but the jerseys deserve a shout out because those are of all the jerseys the Giants currently wear, those are by far my favorite. I
you
love
go.
seeing those jerseys.
That'll do it. For Matt Citak, I'm Paul Dottino. We'll see you next time on Big Blue Kickoff Live. So long, everybody.